I have my coffee. I don't know why I got into the stupid habit of like, if I don't burn my tongue with a coffee, it won't taste right. So I have to drink right away from it, or at least it has to be hot or warm, because then it won't taste right. Dad put this in my car so I don't get into an accident. Do you see it? It's agua bendita. Should I drink it? Will my nightmares go away if I drink this? I don't know. It doesn't smell like anything different. For a second, I thought it was perfume. I don't wear perfume because I like to smell like shit. But I thought that was weird, so I'm like, this is definitely my mom's because this is how I saw it. And then when I turned it over, I was like, what the hell? And my mom's like, yeah, Dad put it in there so you don't, so it's taking care of you. I'm like, okay. I used to believe in that shit. I still, a part of me kind of does, but I only do it for my child, me, basically, to make them happy or whatever. But yeah, we're not talking about that today. About religion. And can you imagine? I'm like, guys, we have to believe in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. No. I actually think it's a red flag when people like kind of try to get you to believe in what they believe. I just think it's very weird. Like you can talk about it, I guess, but it's just strange. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, I am a pessimist. Naturally a pessimist, and I hate it. But I think it's better, to my defense, I think it's better than being an octopus. No, I'm just kidding. Why do I always want to say that? An ot- optimistic? Is that how you say optimistic person? Because when you're too happy, you're just too naive. You know what I mean? But when you're too like pessimistic, you're just too miserable. I guess we have to find the perfect balance, and that's a very Libra thing to say. But I promise you, it makes sense because it's like you can't be too sad, but you can't be too happy. And I've always been more on the miserable side, if you haven't noticed. I guess I've never really noticed, like when I was younger, how much of a pessimist I really was until one of my brothers pointed it out, because he's on the opposite end. He was always a really happy person, and I guess I'd like try to become that. I feel like I'm some sort of chameleon. I think that's what it is, where it's like I become who's around me, and that's why I like to be around people that feel more on the positive side. I just thought it was strange to see people that seemed really genuinely happy, because even when I've been happy in my life, there was always a part of me that's like, this is gonna end soon. And for me, happiness is just like a blink of an eye, because as soon as it's over, it's over. You know what I mean? Like it never lasts, it never lingers like sadness does. So I guess when my brother started pointing it out, I realized that I am a pretty pessimistic person. I always thought I was more realistic than that, but it turns out I am not, because I always think of worst case scenarios with situations. Whereas with felt, I don't know this, but like it felt like he was always expecting the best or hoping for the best, and I just could not relate to that. And I guess pessimistic beliefs and just like being a pessimist was my default setting. Like I was never a person. I don't remember when I was a person that like thought everything was going to go great. I was almost always on the edge. Like I was always, I felt like I was hanging out on the edge and waiting for anybody who would cross it so I could keep them from falling. So, but I always knew somebody would come around. You know what I mean? And I was always trying to like be like fast enough to stop people from falling off the edge and keep myself steady at the same time. And it was always like, you know how they say the glass is half full or half empty? I just always thought that the glass was never full or empty. There was nothing ever there. And even if there was, it was probably suspicious. So I think that's pessimism. But I felt like it was more of I felt calm with it. I liked the thought of worst case scenario. Like I always told myself, I have to think of the worst case scenario so I can find a solution for it, and then I'll calm down and then I'll stop being miserable. But people around me that were more on the happier side, they just thought I was wasting my time and like really being like, the party pooper. But it's like, what if somebody does poop at the party? You know what I mean? Like, can we make a plan? Like, what if I do poop at a party? Like, what do we do? If we thought of a plan, I wouldn't freak out about it and I wouldn't think so much about it. I guess my anxiety was the reason I was always like a pessimist. And I hate the fact, like, now all over social media, and it's becoming less now, but there was a point where everybody was really positive all the time and it was very like cheesy, and I just think it wasn't realistic. And neither one is realistic, but I just thought it was even more unrealistic. This fantasy of like everything's happy, or that we have to be hopeful and we have to pray and everything will turn out right. Like, what if it doesn't, though? You know what I mean? Like, can we just think of what if it doesn't? What if, because eventually it's not going to be a happy. And here I am again, like eventually everything's going to end, even the good, especially the good. So, can we come around and come up with a solution for when it does so we're ready for it and it's not so harsh? I guess that's how I justified my pessimism. My pessimism, I can't even say that word, but I'm trying to explain why I was a pessimist for so long and I still am. It's just like, for me, my anxiety always is forcing me to like freak out about everything. Like, what if this happens, this happens? And the only way I can calm it down is if I come up with a solution for the worst case scenario, or a scenario that would embarrass me or be like really uncomfortable. And once I found a solution or a way around that, then I was okay. I was fine. I could enjoy the moment. I could live in the moment and be more realistic. But I was never really like the happy person. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could laugh and I could be like in a giggly mood. And once I'm in that, it's really hard to get me out of it. But it's on the surface. You know what I mean? Deep down inside, I'm still struggling with like things that could go wrong. And that forced me on a spot where like I couldn't drink, I couldn't do anything that would kind of numb my brain, because I had to be always on guard. Basically, I always had to stand by the edge just in case somebody like, almost fell. And already knew if somebody falls, like, they're gone. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about like literal. I'm more talking about like psychological, like if somebody wasn't okay, like if something went wrong in every way. Like, I felt like I was this person that had to be the person watching for what could happen because nobody else seemed to be. So I guess one of the things, there's a lot of things that would trigger this, make it worse, was people that were very spontaneous. Like, if somebody didn't give me all the details or enough details about a situation that they were putting me through, or if we were going to go do something that could be dangerous, I had to be like, okay, something could go wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of stupid because I'm not like a nurse, I'm not a doctor, I'm not like a psychologist, I'm nothing like that. But yet again, there I was thinking that maybe I could outsmart the bad scenario. And being in an uncontrolled place with people that could get hurt made me only influenced this need to find worst case scenario, all the time. And I always thought, if you think of the worst case scenario, it won't happen because you've already planned for it. It only happens when you don't think of a way around it. And in a lot of ways, it was what would happen. I would always tell one of my brothers, or even my sister, or even my mom, is like, what if this happens? What if this happens? And it could be like really like small. Like, for example, one of the things I struggled with a lot was a presentation in school. I still hate them. I actually dropped out of a college course that I was doing really well because we had to do a presentation, and I would much rather die, like the worst painful death, than do a presentation. That's how bad my social anxiety is. So I told her, what if I stutter? What if I stutter? Like, what if I do that? Like, what am I going to do? She said, you've practiced it so much, you won't stutter. And then I did. And then a different time, it's like I told my English teacher, how do you pronounce this? I'm afraid to stutter. And she's like, if you stutter, just keep going. Just just keep going. Just correct yourself. Say, oh, I meant this. And just keep talking. And the fact that she gave me a solution made me stop overthinking so much. And when I went, it wasn't that bad. Yes, I still sounded really nervous, but she gave me like a solution. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's not really like gonna fix everything, at least it was something. The whole like ignoring it, like, that's not gonna happen, that's not happen, made me only more anxious, and it almost always resulted in it happening. So I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like accidentally I manifested it. You know what I mean? But those were the triggers. My anxiety was like always on the edge, like, this is gonna happen, this might happen, or what if this happens? But once I found a solution in my head or a plan B, all of a sudden I stopped overthinking it so much. Like one of the things I would do a lot is every social interaction at work, I'd be like, I'm gonna embarrass myself. I already know I'm gonna embarrass myself horribly. But then I started to, what's a better thing to do with to avoid embarrassment? You can't really avoid it, but what you could do is get ahead of it. So I started to say the most embarrassing shit that I could think of out loud because now I already took that, like, I kind of broke the ice. You know what I mean? Like, I was always embarrassed to shit myself in public, but now I talk about it all the time. So if I'm like especially scared to like shit myself in front of like my coworkers, I'll be like, oh my God, I have diarrhea. I already told them like something really personal, and they're gonna be like, what the hell? Why would you? And I have done this before. And now it's like, if I do shit myself, are they really surprised? You know what I mean? Like, it's just funny now because it's like I literally just told them. It's kind of like that. I feel like it helped me because now it was within my control. But it's just stuff like that that would like randomly, like, also telling people I'm like anxious helps me calm down a little bit because now they kind of understand why I'm like acting the way I am. Obviously, I don't want to like straight up start trauma dumping on people, but it just helps a little bit to be like, oh, I'm not shaking because I randomly like to shake. I'm just nervous, like putting it out there so they don't have to find out. It's kind of like when people, like, I used to do this all the time. It's like, yes, I'm the duff with my friend group because I wanted to say it before anybody else could roast me, type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, you put it on the table so nobody, if anybody else points it out, it's like, yeah, I already said that, type of thing. Kind of how, or my way of thinking around like anxiety. But the thing is, it's like, it's kind of a trap too because I could keep thinking of more scenarios that could go wrong. If I told them, "Oh, I'm scared, I'm gonna stutter at a presentation," and then I do, and then I try to find a solution, but it just keeps getting worse, and I didn't come up with more solutions. Like, one thing I do even today is I'll think of like, what if somebody says something really weird to me? And I think of what is the weirdest thing somebody could say to me, and then I come up with something to say to that, so I have a solution. But then it's like, what if they say something else that's bad? You know what I mean? Keep coming up with things, and I'm dwelling and I'm spiraling, and it's like there's no coming out of it. So I think of like, what's ways to get out of it, and that's when more coping strategies come into play. And that's one of, it's like, once you come up with one solution, you're done. You know what I mean? You're done. You don't have to come up with any more. You told yourself it's done. And another way to get out of it, especially when I'm just home, or like I'm not doing anything that at the moment happening, I always try to tell myself to be grateful about stuff that I have. It sounds so cheesy, but gratitude does help me a lot because sometimes I tend to dwell on the past and how horrible things went. And I think of, but you're okay, and everybody you know is okay and alive. And although we tipped on that edge, we're still here, type of thing. Same with like just self hatred and self talk. I try to stop myself by telling myself, I hate being positive towards myself. Like, I hate complimenting myself because it just feels really not me. I just don't, I've never been a person that liked myself. Like, I've never liked myself. And the way I tell myself, okay, every time you say something bad to yourself, you have to say something good, that stops me right away because I don't want to have to do that. You know what I mean? So I stop roasting myself randomly in the mirror because I'm like, I don't want to say something positive because that's like awkward. Another way I like try to find like a coping strategy for negative thinking is doing the chameleon thing that I was telling you guys about. I feel like because I lack personality, I tend to match other people around me. So for a long time, I would match anybody who was near me. And that's why a lot of the times people tend to either you really like me or you really don't like me. And the reason you don't like me is because I'm a reflection of you and you don't like yourself. I liked being around people that were a lot happier than I would ever be because now I could be that. I could kind of like be infected by their emotions. So a lot of the times I found myself gravitating towards people that were too optimistic, and it was kind of suffocating because I get infected. I felt what they felt now and I kind of understood it, but it was never completely. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I didn't lose myself completely, so I was never like completely happy as they seemed to be. I could understand it. They kind of influenced me in their way of thoughts. Like, they just felt like they could fully be there, and I guess I'll never understand. You know, the weird thing, the best part of that is like once you get somebody that's like somewhat happier than you, this works with pretty much anything, but when you see somebody that's happier than you can always channel them. I love channeling different types of people in my life when I have a situation that would really help me if I was like them more. For example, my sister's really good at interviews, talking professionally. So when I go into interviews, which I absolutely hate, and I'm like horrible at interviews, I try to become my sister. Like, I try to channel her. And I do that with a lot of people. So I try to channel the person I need, especially when they're a happy person. I'm just like, how would they feel? And it's so fun. Like, I remember one of my brothers saying, you know, when you're at a family gathering that you're not really a part of and you feel uncomfortable, or just like somewhere where they have food, start eating the food because it kind of like opens you up. I don't know how he said it. I don't remember how he said it, but it's like it makes you a part of what's going on. And he was right, because that's exactly what I would do when I felt uncomfortable. It kind of, especially if it was like people made the food that were there, I could always like talk about the food and stuff. So I would channel whatever helped, like would help me in that situation. Like, if you're good at something specifically, especially regarding people and conversations, I'd probably channel you. You know what I mean? It's like I'm always like copying people's superpowers, or trying to, like a cheap copy, but it helped me out because like I would see the world differently, and that kind of filled the void basically of like I didn't want to be me anymore because the me didn't really help. And I guess in a way, you are yourself no matter what, because even when you channel somebody, you're still you, but you're also a different version of yourself that you didn't think was possible. That's why sometimes I feel like I can be a better person, like a different person, the person I want to be. The more people you meet, the more you can channel more people, and you kind of like get more powers, you know? Because now you know more, because everybody you meet knows how to do something you don't know. You know what I mean? Like, they're good at something you're not good at. So it's like, if you can learn from that, it's always good. And I guess I don't know a lot of people, so that's kind of where I'm limited. But the people I do know, I try to channel where I'm struggling, basically. When I'm talking to my mom in Spanish, because, you know, her English isn't good. When I'm talking to her in Spanish, I completely become her, like her, basically. And people don't realize this. When I'm talking to somebody, I'm like almost becoming them, basically. Because like I know I will understand you better if I am you, talking to you. It sounds creepy, but it's better because who I am is not going to help this conversation. And I'm not trying to like outdo them by, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to outdo them, but basically being matching who they are. And it kind of helps me stop from being pessimistic, because if I'm always thinking the way, like talking the way I think, no one's gonna care. Like, nobody likes a pessimistic person. It's never a good thing. Nobody ever sees it as a good thing. But it's like when I'm constantly worried about something and second guessing, I guess it helps me, my anxiety. If I met somebody that's pessimistic, like, you know, thinks the worst case scenario, then I kind of would feel good, because now we're matching each other, and they're like matching who I am. So it feels validating, because it's like I've lived so much life where it's like, oh, stop thinking like the worst case scenario. Oh, you're such a pessimist. But it's like, okay, and I never tell you stop being such a freaking naive, optimistic octopus. No, I'm just kidding. Why do I keep trying to call it that? I don't understand. But yeah, it's just one of the things I worry about lately. I've been very scared to like eat food that's dangerous, because like, not dangerous by like, why is it, I'm scared of choking like really bad on food, because it happened to me a while back. I think I've told you guys this before, but it's like a fear that won't let me be. And I think I'm gonna buy, because I'm coming up with a solution so I can stop overthinking it. I'm gonna buy a thing that helps you if you're choking, because if it happens to me, okay, I kind of know how to get rid of my food, so I can pull it out of my throat. It's still really scary, but if it happens to somebody in my family, you know what I mean? Like, how am I gonna help them? So my solution is to buy that item that will help you, basically save your life. I think it's expensive though, so that's gonna suck. Yeah, that's basically it. Like, I hate that I guess I hated that I was this way for a long time, but I think I know why, especially when I'm like putting it out there. There's a reason we are the way we are, and like when I tell people, or when I try to explain myself, nobody ever gave me that chance to explain myself, basically. So when I do it, I finally feel like it makes sense to be a pessimist shit when shit would go wrong and you didn't have an answer, and you didn't have anywhere to go to. So I guess it makes sense, and everybody's the way they are for a reason. I wonder if you're an octopus out there. No, I'm just kidding. If you're an optimistic person, please tell me how you think. Like, tell me, how do you do it? Because for me, it's really hard to understand. I guess it's hard to understand like the opposite, and I've been around people that are more happier than not, but it just, to me, it comes out more naive and like living in the moment and like very hopeful, and like not a lot of things have gone wrong. So I want to know, everybody else, if you're a more positive person, like, how do you do it? What is your secret? And if you're not a happier person, you're a pessimistic, um, we can turn it into a benefit by coming up with solutions to problems that have not yet happened. So when it does happen, because it has happened before, where like if something goes wrong, I thought of it and I have a plan. If there's an accident or something like that, I have a plan for it. So it's kind of like that. Like, even just now about the whole choking thing, like, I'm going to buy a machine that could save somebody from choking. It's kind of like that. Like, nobody really thinks, oh, this could happen. I don't have anything until it happens. So, I don't know. And I'm not talking just about accidents. I'm talking about like situations. Like, I would always be like, what if this happens when we're there? What if this person says this and they're like, oh, they won't say that. And then they do. And it's like, are you kidding me? So I always like to think of solution. And the benefit of that is like, I always have something to say or something to do from it. Stuff like that. This is great. So yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense, but if you're an optimistic person, tell me, what do you do? Do you still plan for the worst, but you just are good at like not getting scared by it? Because I've never been inside. Like, I've never asked somebody that's optimistic, how do you do it? I've just been hit by their wave of like happiness, if that makes any sense. Like, I just like, and I can breathe their confidence, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds really weird, but I feel like I can inhale their confidence and I get a little bit of it, and I'm just like, damn, I feel amazing to be that positive all the time, when I'm always like, life's miserable and everybody's gonna die a painful death. I don't know. My parents' solution is to give me holy water and hope I don't die on the road. That's cute. Anyways, I'm leaving because my cats need their food. I'll see you guys later.